Almost Punk Podcast, episode 27 with Colin and Olga.
Yes.
Farewell
we are
to
back.
January 2022.
That was fast.
Moving into February. That was the fastest January I've ever had, I think.
Yeah.
I don't really remember anything,
and yet,
but whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. It was just a bunch of weekdays, short weekends, and then poof, here we are.
And I swear it was like, we started the podcast, the news started happening, and boom, we got more news right off the bat.
As soon as we finished recording, it was like more stuff that we already wanted to talk about in the next episode, which is good.
And to start it off, Mighty BOSSTONES breakup.
Yes.
Which also reminds me, we have to mention it. It wasn't on our agenda, but Every Time I Die broke up, did they not?
That's right. I meant to put it on the agenda.
So that was like the two big bands.
Yeah, there's two big bands that called it quits.
And I just remembered it right now. But anyway, Mighty BOSSTONES, 40 years. They're a band for 40 years, and now they decide to break up. Strange. And so this was the rumor. Okay, this is unverified. I only saw one article about it, and it seemed like it was an opinion piece. So I don't want to spread rumors, but I'm going to spread a little rumor. And it was the band couldn't get along about COVID.
Yeah. Which is crazy, but it's also like, I was thinking about that, how crazy that is. And yet this is what happens when you're living through a pandemic, apparently, because I've seen families fight about this. I've seen, families having so much drama over some people being super cautious, some people not being cautious, some people not believing it's real, some people believing it's real, and so on. So it makes sense that a band breaks up because it is kind of a big deal. And these people are the people that are in your sort of circle. And if that you have different ideas or thresholds of risk thresholds about it, then it becomes an issue. But it is crazy that we're living through a time where that is a big topic, but it is. Like, you can't say that it is not.
At 40 years. So you're a band for 40 years, and now you have an issue with another band member's opinion? That's why that was the part that, if I thought, wow, this can't be the first time they've had a political difference about something in 40 years. Now you just find out. That's the part that threw me off completely, because I thought, I could understand you don't have the same views about anything, but after 40 years, you've probably managed to not talk about it or nip it in the bud, or you find some way to get along or something. But apparently no. Apparently apparently COVID and vaccines, it was just, that was the breaking point. There was no agree to disagree or anything like that.
Yeah, but it is important to be on the same page, because right now bands are making decisions. Do they want to tour? Do they not want to tour? Actually, I had tickets to see AFI, I think in March of this year. And I just saw today that they pushed their tour out to fall. So, and that's a decision you make as a band, because I'm sure there's bands that feel like, hey, this isn't the right time for us to do a tour, that seems risky or whatever, right? And then there's the bands that are like, hey, let's go make some money, like this is our livelihood. And you have to be on the same page with people about that. Like, it is sad that that's what our lives have come to, but that's just like the reality.
And ska punk, I think it's having a slight resurgence as well.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of not the right time to be breaking up for monetary purposes. Although it's the pandemic, I understand that. But I just mean, like we talked about last week, pop punk's coming back, or it is already back. And then ska punk, it's resurgence, slightly at least.
Slightly,
and I'm thinking, is this 1997 or 1998 over again? Because this is kind of, that's when that stuff started popping up big time in our youth. And now here it comes again. And then the biggest band of the genre, that at least from our era, they break up.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. I didn't see why Every Time I Die, what their reasoning was. I don't.
Yeah, they had a band.
I saw a lot of posts about it.
I didn't understand that one either. It just came out of the blue. Every Time I Die, now it's breakup amid feud between band members, and I don't know. That's weird. They've been around apparently for 24 years, and they don't have, like, the rest of the band doesn't have any communication with the singer. So they just break up now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's as people grow up, their opinions about stuff changes, and a lot of these bands started when people were younger and maybe not as politically opinionated or aware of what they believe, and so I guess those things are coming up. But it is interesting how much it's impacting the music part of it too, because but it does, like, isn't like System of a Down the reason they're not together anymore is because of like political disagreements within the band.
Yeah, there's two band members that don't agree with each other. At least two. There might be three now.
At least apparently it's a common thing.
Man.
Maybe. I'm having a realization is being in the band. It's kind of like being, and I think I've said this before. It's kind of like being in a relationship with a lot of people, with a couple of people, right? And so when you are dating somebody or you're in a romantic relationship with somebody, it's pretty important to be mostly on the same page about politics and COVID or whatever. And maybe the same thing applies to bands. Maybe bands need to have these conversations of, are you going to have kids? Am I going to have kids? Are we going to break up when we have kids? How do you feel about money? How do you feel about
And then politics? You have to tell them you can't change your mind 40 years down the road.
Ever. You are not allowed to ever change your mind. But I mean, that's so hard to find. It's already hard enough to find people who want to make the music that you want to make and are inspired by the same bands you're inspired by. And now you have to be like, are you going to have kids? Are you going to break up the band when you have kids? I mean, because that stuff impacts bands.
Yeah, just like you just mentioned System of a Down, and I thought, Deftones, they got a problem like that. I think Korn has a problem like that. So, I mean, a lot of these bands end up having these issues. Yeah. But when they started, I guess that just wasn't a topic of conversation. Maybe when you're in your 20s or your early 20s, you got other stuff going on. You're not focusing on the worldwide events, possibly. And now this, the quarantine is in your face. There's no escaping it, so maybe it's really pushed the hot button topic on bands that never would have had to deal with it.
A lot of those bands were having those issues before COVID. So maybe it is like a growing up, you become more aware of the world outside of your mom's basement. And I don't know, and people also just change their minds, right? Like a lot of people don't necessarily vote or believe the same things they did when they were 18, when they're versus 34 or 40 or 50 or whatever.
Well, speaking of COVID stuff related, you had the news about artists pulling out of Spotify because of COVID misinformation.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I think it's because Spotify is the only place that has the Joe Rogan podcast, which is, a huge top podcast. And people are mad at misinformation about COVID. And so some artists are starting to pull out. I'm interested if there's going to be punk artists that pull out or anything like that, because so far it's just been like people I don't really listen to.
That was the thing I was going to talk about, or at least briefly mention. So at one point in time, I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast, not regularly, but every once in a while, because he'd have some comedians on, and I always liked his interviews with comedians. And then sometimes he'd talk about the JFK assassination, which is an old hobby of mine. And then he talks about aliens. So I'm like, okay, I like these alien stories. I like this JFK conspiracy stuff. And I like this stuff about comedians. So I was like, okay, this is fine. But then he starts having these guests that it's just like, what happened to this show? And it wasn't even, Joe Rogan himself, he doesn't really say anything inflammatory himself. He just has these guests and he doesn't question anything that they have to say. And that's kind of where the problem goes, because they'll just come on the show and they'll start saying anti-trans stuff. And Joe Rogan will just be like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds like a problem or whatever. And it's like, what? No, huh? And then he has Alex Jones, super right-wing, crazy conspiracy theorists. And he just starts talking and, they'll talk about the vaccine and he just accepts whatever they say. So if his guest comes and says like, the vaccine is going to spread microchips into your blood system, blah, blah, Joe Rogan goes, whoa, are you serious? That's crazy. Like, he doesn't. And then the next week, he doesn't follow it up with a guest with the opposite opinion. So it just leaves it out in the open. I think that's kind of where the problem is.
Yeah.
At least that's one of the problems. And And then the other thing is, why do you keep having these same guests come on all the time if you say you don't believe in this stuff? And he says he wanted to vote for Bernie Sanders and all this stuff, and he gets accused of being like this right-wing crazy guy. And he's like, hey, he's not really a crazy right-wing guy, at least historically from his other show. But then, okay, I'm trying to wrap it up quickly. Most of the people that are criticizing his show, they don't watch it. So they don't even know what, they just hear something that he's anti-trans or something. And then they just assume he is. And he may very well be. I'm not saying he's a good person. I'm not saying he's a bad person. I just meant his podcasts are long. Some of them are like 3 or 4 hours. So anyway, he has a guest come on and they're talking about, you don't need a vaccine. Vaccines are stupid, blah, 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 blah. And now artists are tired of it and they're pulling out of Spotify in response, like Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Nils Lofgren. And like you said, our punk band's going to start doing it. Well, what do you think? We're in a punk band.
I don't think so.
Are we pulling our music off of Spotify over this one?
I am somebody who likes a grudge and I like boycotting things. And I think the way you vote is with your money when it comes to as a consumer, right? So, but I've also seen so many news cycles like this where everybody is like, oh, we're boycotting this company and then we're all using this other company. And then the question is this other company ever better? And we don't know. So it's kind of, I think it'll blow over in a couple of weeks. There'll be some sort of resolution. I'm sure a couple more bands will pull out or whatever. I also think the problem isn't Spotify having his podcast on the platform. The problem is, why are people listening to this guy for medical advice? Like, why are we living in a country where they are listening to some dude versus their own doctor? And, that's my question always is like, well, why are you listening to, like, it's just crazy to me that people will listen to somebody who has a podcast over like their own doctor these days. Like it's insane. It is
insane. And Spotify, the only thing I know they've done so far is they have now agreed to add a disclaimer that's saying like, this is COVID related information, does not reflect the views of anybody here. Click on this link to go get official recommendations or something like that. That was what Spotify was going to do about it, at least at this point.
Okay.
And they were just going to let Joe Rogan do what he wants to do. Joe Rogan says, I'm going to go get other guests that have a different viewpoint to counter the viewpoint of the people he already had. But I don't believe him because he never does. That's the thing. He never does it.
Yeah. I would like to, I don't want to listen to his show especially for 4 hours, but it should have been like a debate then between two different views. Then at least you're getting a different perspective too, but it's not. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'm guessing it'll blow over. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I do too.
Because everything always does.
This is like the third issue he's had on a different social issue that, that he had a problem with Spotify employees and, he's the most popular show they have, right? So
so
he
they're
carries
not
a little
get rid
weight.
of him.
He can do kind of what he wants to do. That's where they make money.
And all of this is just generating more interest in his podcast in a way, like people are going to be curious. So it's good publicity for him, even though it's bad publicity, but
So moving out of that,
we're going to Vegas, or some of us are, for When We Were Young festival.
Yes. 60 bands one day. And so then they said, well, it sold out in like 5 seconds. The same 60 bands in one day, the next day, 2 shows now. And then a week later, the same 60 bands, another show.
Yeah.
And so apparently that one hasn't sold out yet, but they just went on sale, 2 days ago or something like that.
And I didn't realize it hasn't sold out yet. Okay. And I think what's interesting is all those bands doing 2 shows in the row is one thing, but then having to come back a week later.
Yeah, that part
kind of sucks.
I thought that would only make sense if they did again with another 2-day.
Yeah.
Then, okay, now it's worth my time, I guess. I'm going to come back on. who knows how much they're paying them. It may very well be worth their time to come back the next week if they're getting 100 grand or something.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I wonder if the bands could negotiate just like actors do for sequels. Like, oh yeah, like for second show, I want double. For third show, I want triple. Because you want to have that full lineup. That's what people want to see. So
well, their flyer is nuts. I was gonna say the band's at the bottom of the flyer, but I mean their flyer is a mess. So I couldn't even say the bands at the bottom of the anyway, the lesser known bands I was imagining are getting paid probably barely anything. I was guessing maybe a couple $100 or something. So all the big money goes to the big bands like Avril Lavigne and
Paramore
and Paramore. Yeah. So I mean, you think it's gonna happen? I guess that was the rumor. Is like this show is a scam.
Yeah. So there was a lot of it was a lot of buzz on the internet about, I guess, a lot of like TikTok theories. And first of all, there's TikTok theories about everything. It doesn't. The same people who criticize people for listening to Joe Rogan podcast for their information are getting their information off TikTok off of some random dude who's recording in his mom's garage. Like come on, like that doesn't mean anything. And then I saw there's a musician, I forget who, but he said, what do you think the promoters and the veteran bands in this scene are all just winging it? And I was like, that's a great point. These people know what they're doing. It is a lot of bands for one day. And however, that's what Warped Tour was
that's
like,
the thing.
This is exactly what Warped Tour is. And so I think it makes sense because I'm sure a lot of bands will get 15-minute sets. I've also heard that there's going to be like a rotating stage to save time between setup, which makes sense. And there's like 3 stages, and they'll probably have like the parking lot version of stages too. I think it's doable. It's just maybe not in 3 stages. They're probably gonna have 2 smaller stages on top of the 3.
Well, if they do it like Warped Tour had, man, 10, like, because there was usually 2 big stages at Warped Tour, and then 2 medium-sized ones, and that was like the bulk of the action for the big bands. But remember, there was like the smart punk stage and like these tiny DIY stage, Kevin Says stage, and like all these little small ones, and people just playing in front of their merch tents.
Yes, and that. So I think the people that are starting these conspiracy theories are too young to have ever been to a Warped Tour, and they don't know that this is what that was like. And they're like, oh, but you're going to miss all the bands because everybody's going to play this. And that's exactly, yes, you are.
Miss a ton.
I have no doubt you will miss most of these bands. You're going to have to pick and choose who you want to see, and you're going to have to make sacrifices. It'll be Sophie's choice for you punks, okay, and your emos, but that's what Warped Tour was like. It was, you had to pick between 2 of your favorite bands playing at the same time sometimes.
And it's like, I think if these people think they're going to be able to pick in advance, no. I remember Warped Tour. It was, you get there and then you find out the band that you really wanted to see is playing right now, and then you run and you catch the last 30 seconds of their song. You're like, well, that was great. The band I came to see played first, and now I don't care about the rest of the day. Okay. That's going to happen.
Yeah, and there's times you showed up and the band has already played, like before official time started, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Okay.
You're going to go to this thing. AFI is playing at 10 a.m. You're going to miss them. And then you're going to be like, damn it.
I know. I am going. I bought tickets for this, and I have no expectations going into it because I don't think I'm going to see most of these bands. I think I'm going to miss a lot of stuff walking around. It's going to be chaos, but it'll be an experience. I'm just there to experience, check it out, and see how it is, and have as much fun as I can get out of the day. Is it worth $300 plus fees? No. Am I willing to pay it after spending like 2 years in my living room? Yeah, I mean
that is the reason to go. Like if I had things going on differently, I'd be like, I would go too for that same exact reason. It's like, I can't go to local shows because they're not happening. I haven't been to one in 2 years now, or whatever, how many years, I don't even know now. It's been so long.
Yeah.
And I went to a big giant punk rock festival, and
it was awesome.
And now it's like, these are your only options. So I would have spent all that money throughout the year normally. Now it's just condensed down into one show.
Exactly. It is a Warped Tour, except for instead of $35, it's $300. Inflation, people. But
that is a ticket and a half right there.
It's crazy. I mean, when I was buying the tickets and I saw my total, it stung a little or a lot. I was like, it was over $600 for something for 2 tickets.
It's so annoying. I would have preferred personally to have the same lineup just split into 2 days and just get a 2-day ticket. Of course, then they make half the money, I guess, but you only have to pay the bands one time either way.
Yeah, you just pay for the logistics twice.
Yeah, I'm just like,
stuff.
couldn't they have done something like that? Would have made me happier, but okay.
It would have made me happier too. But but right now, Punk Rock Bowling has been postponed. Yeah. So I have nothing to live for. So am I willing to spend exactly what I would have spent on all these other concerts throughout the year on this one big concert? Yeah, because what am I going to do? I need some fun. I'm tired of being quarantined. I'm tired of being at home. I'm tired of nothing happening. Every show keeps being postponed or whatever. So it is the right recipe for this festival, because obviously it's a huge nostalgia show, and now people that grew up listening to that music have money. That's what they're really like. These are the people who are now working, and maybe a lot of them are at the age where they don't have the grown-up bills yet. They're right in that sweet spot of like, they can afford it if they budget for it, because they're not paying for children's braces and
also when you're 30, then you turn 35 or 40, it's harder and harder to keep up with modern music and new bands. And so this festival, like you're saying, now you have money. Here's all the bands that you like from when you
your favorite bands.
Yeah, when you still new bands. They're going to be playing all the songs you like now. They're not going to be sticking to like one album or something. So it's going to be greatest hits of all your favorite bands from that era. So I mean, it makes total sense. Also shows what a value punk rock bowling was when you could get the whole 3-day ticket for under the cost of one ticket for this thing.
One day. Agreed. Yeah, punk rock bowling is the best value, because I look at other festivals. Sometimes my other friends go to like non-punk festivals, and I look at the prices and I'm like, I'm out. Like they are all very expensive compared to punk rock bowling. And also, even like being in downtown Vegas, it makes it a lot more affordable to stay there and so on. So, and even though it's gotten more expensive over the years, it's still cheaper than a lot of other festivals. That compared to Coachella, it's ridiculous value. And much more bands that I personally want to see.
The last thing I wanted to talk about for this particular topic was like the conspiracy theory that Live Nation was putting on this show as a way to cover their legal costs of the Astroworld Festival. People got 10 people or something got crushed and they died. And so there's this thought that this festival is going to pay the bills for that other one, and that's why it's so expensive, and that's why there's 60 bands on one day. It's this whole thing.
Well, and that it's fake. It's just
And I'm like, no. Live Nation puts on almost every big concert there is. This is not they have the money to cover that lawsuit without this show. There's no correlation.
Yeah, it was funny that people are saying it's the same people that did Fire Festival and Astroworld, and it's like there's not a lot of companies that put on festivals, people. No. It's the same as you being like, I'm gonna boycott Spotify, and it's like, cool, it's not like you can get a streaming service from your local mom and pop streaming shop. Like you're gonna have to go with another big company. And
music industry it's a giant monopoly. Like Ticketmaster steals all your money. There's no escape. You try to do another route, that you get railroaded. If you're a different company, they put all these blocks in front of you. They have exclusive negotiations with all the venues. It's just a mess.
Yeah, or when like other like punk rock bowling will usually, they don't sell their tickets through Ticketmaster or Live Nation. But the website crashes like every year, and people complain about that too. So here you go. Like, not a lot of websites are large enough and they can sustain selling tickets to a popular music festival that like tens of thousands of people are trying to buy at the exact same time.
I believe it's 80,000. I could be wrong on that. That was just off the top of my head. I thought it was 80,000 people are going to fit in this thing. So, woof, that's a lot of dough coming in.
Yeah.
Anything else on that one?
Interesting. It'll be interesting. I can't wait.
Final bit of news that we had, Bruce Lee Band is back, Mike Park, Asian Man Records. And it's funny, you sent me the news, it's like, oh, they're reforming. And he's in his 50s now, and that's a ska punk band. And it was interesting that you sent it just because I follow him on Twitter. And the last thing I remember reading about was him trying to get advice on how to get his teenage daughter to not hate him. And I thought, well, isn't that the weirdest thing? Here's this guy in this ska punk band, very well regarded, a lot of respect from everyone, blah, blah. But he's talking about his teenage daughter doesn't like him. It's just such a strange world. And the stuff
because there's so many people who think he's the coolest dude ever. And he is like a really cool dude that a lot of people look up to. So it is really funny.
Like the king of DIY punk.
Yeah.
And then, my daughter doesn't like, and it's like the same problems he would have if he was a businessman that didn't care about his children or whatever. It's the same thing. Wow.
Yeah, I think it was like Noodles of the Offspring or something like that, who's had to take his kid to go see NSYNC or something because that's what she was into. So it's just because you have a parent who's really cool and isn't doing something doesn't mean, because the kids want to rebel. So they rebelled against their parents by listening to punk, and so now their kids are rebelling probably by listening to pop music. Because if your dad is Mike Park, it's probably the most rebellious thing you can do is just only listen to top 40. I don't know.
Punk. I want to eat fancy foods, and we keep having to eat garbage because you don't make any money.
But yeah, it is interesting, and it is a well-timed reunion now that you're saying.
Because ska punk
the new wave of ska punk is coming. So that's what I've been hearing for a while. So there you go.
That makes sense. I mean, that leads us. Did you have any more on that before I move on? Because it leads into my next thing. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to find a ska punk song that I like. That's new. I know I can find one. And so I'm listening through, and I come across this band called TALCO. And the song starts going, and it's like, okay, it's fast, ska punk, it's aggressive, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, I think they're speaking Spanish. And I'm like, wait, well, I have a little bit of understanding of Spanish due to 3 years of taking it in high school. And then I'm like, no, this doesn't make any sense to me either. And then I have to go look it up, and it turns out it's Italian. So it's close. But anyway, so I'm really hoping that the lyrics are good and not offensive, but I couldn't figure it out. Idea. But I thought, wow, this song is catchy, it's fast, and this is kind of the style of ska punk that I do like when I'm feeling ska punkish. Because there's tons of different varieties of ska and ska punk. There's just like the quick upstroke, like that kind of thing. And then there's the so I need to have it fast. And this song was called Via. Band is called TALCO.
Yeah.
Hey, I would venture to say they're the best Italian ska punk band I have ever heard. I listened to some other songs of theirs. They're good.
Yeah.
So
they're good. Yeah, it's good checking out if you're looking for some ska and you don't need to understand the lyrics unless you speak Italian, in which case let us know if the song is offensive or bad.
Yeah. I looked them up on the internet trying to get like, what are these guys about, or who are they, whatever. So apparently they are very liberal and anti-capitalism, apparently. So maybe I don't know, like, what kind of offensiveness to people can you get out of that? I don't think there's nothing I can think of off the top of my head, unless you're like, I really like capitalism, so therefore I don't like this band or something like that. Okay, fine. I was thinking about Asian Man Records because Mike Park, you sent me the Bruce Lee band is reformed, and I'm looking up ska punk, and I found TALCO. And then anyway, More Family Band, they're from San Jose, and they put out a new song on Asian Man Records called "Tired of Being Tired." Pop punk from San Jose, and they're 3 siblings. The band name's terrible, but the song was hella catchy, so I like that. But here's the thing.
Okay.
You had breaking news a long time ago that the Mike Adriano from Alkaline Trio, Adriano. I can't remember his first name.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dan. Thank you. Dan Adriano. You said Dan Adriano is in San Jose for some reason. He's working with Asian Man on something or other. And I remember thinking, oh no, it's going to be another acoustic singer-songwriter garbage thing that I can't stand, because all these punks, that's their favorite thing to do, is put out their singer-songwriting stuff when they go solo, and I hate it. So I thought, this guy's lame. Turns out, I don't know if he might still be doing that, but the reason he came to San Jose was to record with this band, because this song features him. So he might be a songwriter, or he might be playing guitar, and he might be singing. I don't know all the stuff that he did on the song. But anyway, it's a collaboration with him and this band from San Jose, the Moore Family Band. And I thought, whoa, you broke this news a year ago, and here's the song that came out of it.
Well, we've been podcasting for so long.
Do you remember breaking that story?
I do.
Was it like you saw him? I don't remember how.
I think I saw he posted it on Instagram. I do not stalk him or anything. Yeah.
I couldn't remember how it happened.
On Instagram.
I thought you were just driving down the street and you saw him walking by or something.
I mean, that has happened to me before. I'm not gonna lie, not with him, but with other bands. That has happened to me before.
That's what I assumed.
So
but
yeah.
So anyway, I like the song "Tired of Being Tired." It's catchy. It's good.
I agree. I am also tired of being tired. It is a very relatable topic.
Yes. And the last one I had for today was "Ignite" on the Ropes. And so I picked this song not because I think it's the greatest thing of all time or anything. And also, I believe this band has been around for a very long time. So you said 93.
They formed in 93.
Holy cow. We used to play this band on our radio show all the time. Not just because their album had, for whatever reason, it was easy to find that album that we played all the time. I don't think it has the same singer, because I was listening to their old stuff and I was comparing to new stuff. I'm like, I think this guy's different, but they still kind of have that. Okay, this is what I'll say about Ignite. Melodic hardcore music style is like Pennywise and Bad Religion. Sounds the exact same to me. But then the singing is like 80s hair metal. It's very high and clean. So that's the thing that really is weird about Ignite to me, is the vocal acrobatics. Like these guys sing like they're actually singing. It's so strange, because most punks just talk loudly or they yell. They're not into like la 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 la, but no. Ignite, these guys, they sing.
They sing.
Yeah.
They sing.
And so the song was called "On the Ropes."
On the Ropes.
It's new. I mean, I just thought it's amazing that they're still around, even if it's not the same people.
It is amazing. They're still around.
We're talking about old stuff today, so that was my old find. Like Mighty Mighty Bosstones.
I like it because we have bands.
Paul, I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure one of the singers from Ignite became the singer of Pennywise for an album, and then they kicked him out of the band and they brought back Jim.
Okay.
Remember, because Jim left the band to take care of his children or something like that, and then got bored.
I remember when they had a different singer for a while there. Yeah.
And that album was hella good too.
Oh,
yeah.
See,
So I was throwing it out there. Ignite fans, they're still out there doing stuff.
Yeah.
Check them out. They're from Orange County, which, again, that threw me off too, because when I'm listening to them, I'm thinking they're European or something, because their vocal style just does not fit in with the hardcore.
Yeah. But there's
but it's still good.
So many. Orange County has such a good music scene.
Yeah.
For the music we listen to.
There is tons of bands from there.
Yeah, a ton. So.
And that was all my music picks for the week.
Yeah. And then do you have a grudge this week?
So my grudge was, I think I've had it before. Doesn't stop me. Songs featuring people. And I don't even mind that the songs feature people. I just don't like it how they make a point of putting featuring people in the song title. So this is what happened. And this is why it's a grudge again. So I'm going to listen to all these punk playlists on Spotify, trying to listen to all the new stuff, trying to find one I like. And it's very difficult because I don't like 9 out of 10 things, if not more. And then there was like 25% of the songs featuring.
Oh yeah.
Like, God damn it. Can someone just play a song by themselves with their own band and not have to get Travis Barker to play drums? Why is he featured on half the songs on this stupid punk playlist? This is ridiculous. Get a real drummer. Get your own drummer. You don't have to steal them from other. Mark Hoppus. He's on the other half. I don't understand it. And why is it that Blink 182 guys are the ones that are featured in all these bands? I don't understand it.
For the bands, it gives them this credibility because a bunch of people follow Travis Barker and they'll listen to anything he puts out. And now he has like the golden touch because he played on like the Machine Gun Kelly album and that did really well. So it's just like, do you want to be, do you want to do your own thing or are you going for the sure thing? Like if you put that on there, that's why they put it in the song because that's the thing they have going for them.
That guy's the new Josh Freese.
Yeah.
Remember back in our day, Josh Freese was the drummer de jour from the Vandals, but now Travis Barker on everything. I mean, everything. It's weird. I mean, he's a very good drummer. I swear it's featuring Travis Barker on drums for all these songs, but there's also the fake electronic drums behind it all too. So it's very interesting just from this weird, why are we doing that at all? I don't know.
Maybe soon he can just license that, like featuring Travis Barker face. Because at some point you make so much money, it's like, do you really want to play drums for all these bands? Or you can just be like, you can give me this much money and you can say,
you know what he does? He just plays the drums in his house, records it, and just sends the drum tracks to bands. He doesn't
whoever wants to use
whatever you want to do with it, just go ahead, change the speed, change the tempo. Here's the digital audio file. You slap my name on it, pay me 50 grand, we're square. That's how it's
like a subscription.
Yes.
Or something, where it's like, what kind of a Travis Barker track are you looking for? Mid-tempo? Are you looking for a fast one? Are you looking for an acoustic? Yep. Because why even at this point, why are you even playing drums? Like you should be outsourcing that as well.
That's hard work.
I think
drums is like the hardest working.
These bands don't even want to use their own drummer. So why should Travis, who's a millionaire, marrying a millionaire, why should he be doing this work?
What would you think if I decided, hey, our band needs Travis Barker on drums? Sorry, you're out on this one. How would you feel about that?
I would laugh because you can't afford him.
Let's say I could.
If you could afford, I mean.
You're telling me that's fine with you? You have to think about it?
I don't know how I would feel. I'm sure my feelings would be hurt. But he is a better drummer than me, like being realistic.
But what does that have to do with anything?
That's true.
Like, when you listen to a song in your life, is there ever any instrument that you have to go, wow, I'm so glad I listened to this because that technique was what I was really looking for today? Like, when do you ever
say drums? Which is like the thing most people pay the least attention to, arguably.
I mean, I don't know. I just think this is rock and roll based music. This is not, I don't know what's complicated. Music that's complicated. This is not complicated music. You can be good at it or not as good at it, and it'll still end up sounding very similar because it's not that complicated.
But even last week we talked about war on women and them shaming somebody for not being a good enough musician. So clearly this is something that happens.
Yep.
So I guess it happens. I guess that's what you do if you're not really happy with your drummer. You just kind of go, well, we're gonna have Travis play on this track. Hint, hint.
You know, if I were you,
that would hurt.
If I were you and you're like, I want the credibility of Travis Barker on the album, why don't you just both play at the same time? Then you're not being replaced. You're just being augmented. Like, let's say you're saying to me, Colin, you're not playing guitar on this song and you're not singing, you're not doing anything, you're off. I would be mad. I'd be like, what? No, I need to play. But if you're like, oh, you can play, and we're getting Eddie Van Halen back from the dead to go play, and you're like, but you can play too. I'm like, oh, I can play too. Okay, then I'm not butthurt about it.
You know, it basically, in terms of music, it has no purpose to me, because A, Travis Barker's not going to go on tour with you to perform that song. Two, why don't you have your own drummer? Why are you insulting your own drummer, and so on? However,
I was trying to
as a marketing plot, as a marketing scheme, genius. That is, it's just a marketing tool. It's kind of like, you know, magazines putting crazy stuff on the front cover so people pick them up, or anything, any sort of false advertising. Boom, that's exactly what this is.
Well, I'm over it. That was my grudge. What's your grudge?
Yeah, mine is less exciting. I have a creepy neighbor who I just can't even like go outside without running into him, because he's just retired and always home. And so the other day I was like taking out the trash, you know, in like sweatpants and a hoodie, and not that it matters what you're wearing, but he's like, looking good. And it's like, I really am not. Like, I know right now I'm not, but what do you say to that? So it's just been annoying.
That is annoying. Neighbors.
Because I can't leave the house without him like saying something or staring at me. And
that's freaky.
I could be carrying a bag of trash and still I'm just so attractive while I do it to him. Just kidding. And yeah.
There's no win, because even whether it's a compliment or an insult, you don't want to deal with it either way.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to deal with somebody who lives 2 doors down from your place, because then you're constantly, so you can't just be like super rude about it, because you still have to see this person and they know where you live and they could steal your mail or you know, try to mess with your life.
You're gonna have to dress like the Unabomber just to go out of your house, like a full-on hoodie, giant sunglasses that cover your whole face.
I do sometimes. It doesn't matter. Yep. It doesn't matter. So
if the hoodie doesn't solve the problem, it may be an unsolvable problem.
It is an unsolvable. Wearing a hoodie and carrying a bag of trash did not solve the problem. So there's no hope there. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And that is everything for me.
All right. Well, that wraps it up for me. If it wraps it up for you, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.